All right, guys, we're going to start a new unit. So the idea today is that we're going to go through the first lesson. There's really only 3 lessons in this whole unit, so it's a very fast one. And then tomorrow, do some practice on it, okay? So this is very different than stuff we have been doing. We just finished up a long unit on quadratics. Now we're going to do some statistics. So when you think of statistics, you probably think of what are the chances of something happening? Like, what are the chances that I roll a 3 on a dice? Something like that. We are going to get to that. Today, though, is a lot of words, okay? So it's talking about some definitions of stuff. So we're going to do that first, and then in the other 2 lessons, we'll use those definitions to help us solve some things, okay? So big thing for today, we're going to talk about population and sample and some random assignments and things like that, okay? So first thing is these definitions. So population is the entire group of individuals that you want information about, whereas sample is a subset or a smaller group in the population where you're going to get your data, okay? So this is like you're trying to make a study on something and get some information about like a group of people. So here's just what I want you to remember. Population is big. The sample is small. Just smaller, I should say smaller than the population. Okay, it's just a group in the population. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just identify what is what. Okay, so example 1. Glenbard District 87 is home to 8,029 students. Of those, 2,007 are sophomores. So define the population and the sample. Okay, we're going to do some writing today. Okay, so the population is the bigger group. So when you're thinking about there's 8,029 students and then there's also 2,007 sophomores, what's the bigger group? It's the students. Okay, so we can say it's the 8,029 students in Glenbard District 87. Okay, whereas the sample is the subgroup of that, so the smaller group. Okay, so in that whole group of 8,000 students, there are 2,007 sophomores. Okay, so we're just identifying what those are right now. Okay, so number 2, the unemployment rate of Chicago residents is 8.2%, whereas the unemployment rate of U.S. citizens is 14.8%. Define the population and the sample. Okay, so this one, again, you're thinking what's the bigger group? And I don't want you to just look at the numbers because that may not necessarily tell the whole story, but think about what those groups are. You have Chicago residents, and then you also have U.S. citizens. Right? So what group in that is going to be bigger? Hopefully you're thinking it's the U.S. citizens, right? And then the subgroup of that, so the sample, is the smaller group. That's just the people that live in Chicago, right? Chicago residents. Okay, so population's the bigger group, sample's the smaller group. Okay, here's kind of the bigger second piece that we're going to do today. When you are running a study, you want to know if what you're doing is going to be a good study or if it's going to be biased. Okay, so there's a couple things we're going to talk about. So first is random sampling. Okay, so that's using a chance process. So something random. So that could be drawing names from a hat, a random name generator, anything random, to determine which members of a population are going to be in the sample. Okay, so for an example, the names of all 31 students in a class are written on slips of paper, placed in a hat. 5 names are pulled from the hat to create this sample. Okay, so that's random. A random assignment is using a chance process to assign participants of an experiment to a certain group. So the word assignment is going to be important there. Okay, so that's each participant flips a coin. If they flip heads, they go to group A. If they flip tails, they go to group B. Okay, so that's still random. They don't know what they're flipping, but based on what they flip, they go to a certain spot. Okay, that's random assignment. Okay, we're going to talk about a chart in a second, but what does that tell us? When samples are randomly selected, we are able to draw conclusions about the population from which the samples are chosen. When individuals are randomly assigned to groups of an experiment, we're allowed to draw conclusions about cause and effect. Okay, so if you scroll down a little bit, there is a chart here. Okay, we're going to focus on if you have random assignment versus if you have random selection, okay, or random sampling. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what's inside there in a second, but let's just go through an example. Suppose we found that the average GPA of students who listen to music is significantly lower than the average GPA of students who didn't listen to music. What conclusions could we make? Okay, so here's a study. Get all the students in your statistics class to participate in a study. Ask them whether or not they study with music on, and divide them into 2 groups based on their answer to this question. Okay, so when I'm thinking about, is this a random sample? Okay, this is actually going to be a no, right? Because you're just getting all the students in your class to participate in a study. You're not like randomly picking people out of a hat to be in the study. You're just picking everybody. So that's not random. Is it a random assignment? This is also going to be a no, because you are asking them whether or not they study with music on and dividing them based on their answer. Okay, so it's not, you're not flipping a coin. It's not a random ending to that, right? You're just asking them yes or no. Okay, so what do those tell you? Okay, this random selection, this is sample. That means the same thing. So if the random sample is no, if the random assignment is no, I'm looking at where these overlap. That's going to be right here. That means I cannot make a conclusion about the population. Okay, that's what this says right here. And I also cannot determine cause and effect. Okay, so get your pencils ready. We're going to write exactly that. We cannot make a conclusion about the population, and we cannot, because of these no's, determine cause and effect. Okay, basically if it's random, it's going to be a yes. If it's not random, it's a no. Okay, so let's do another one. Select a random sample of students from your school to participate in a study. Ask them whether or not they study with music on, and divide them into 2 groups based on their answer to this question. Okay, first part says select a random sample. Yes, we picked a random sample. Doesn't say how we did it, but it says it's random. Okay, the second part of this is the same thing as before. Ask them whether or not they study with music on, and divide them into groups based on that. That's not random. They already know if they listen to music or not. Okay, so that's not random. So sample tells you about the population. Assignment tells you about cause and effect. So when we write the sentence, this one we're going to say, we can make a conclusion about the population, but we cannot determine cause and effect. Okay, that's just based on what my randomness is. Okay, so maybe if the sub could pause the video and you guys try C. Okay, random, write your conclusion, and then hit play again and we'll check it. Okay, so C says get all the students in your stats class to participate in a study. Okay, right there, that is not a random sample. You're just getting everybody to participate. That's not random. It does say randomly assign half the students who listen to music while studying for the entire semester and have the remaining half not listen. So that, it does say randomly assign. So that is a yes to random assignment. Okay, so sample tells you about population. So this we would say we cannot make a conclusion about the population but we can determine cause and effect. Okay, so again, sample tells you about population, assignment tells you about cause and effect. All right, last one, select a random sample of students. Okay, there you go. Yes, that's a random sample. And then randomly assign half the students who listen to music and don't. So yes and yes. So both population, both cause and effect, we can make conclusions about that, okay? So we can make a conclusion about population and we can determine cause and effect. Okay? All right, I know that is way more writing than we are typically used to, but that's it, okay? That's kind of what stats is. So like I said, the next lesson we are going to talk about like what are the chances of something happening. That's more math, but this is more about studies, okay? So you guys have a quizzes that you can work on in Schoology. Okay, so spend the rest of the time doing that. That's your exit slip for today, and I will be checking in on that. Okay? All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good day.